Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Andy Serling. Forgot my name there for a second. It's been a long couple of weeks here. And we have 12 races on tap here this afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on this Sunday afternoon. Beautiful weather, beautiful day to enjoy 12 races.
A little warmer than it was for you last Sunday, I think.
Oh, yeah. Man, it was only a week ago.
6 days ago, you were in the
memory.
sub-zero temperatures up in the frozen tundra of Laurel.
Absolutely. And do you want to take a quick moment here at the top of the show to talk about the spill yesterday that did happen and some of the riders that were involved there? Joel Rosario suffered a broken wrist and some facial lacerations. Rafael Hernandez, broken collarbone and ribs. And Edgar Zayas, he's out today just with a swollen ankle, but looks to be back next week.
Yeah, and we obviously wish those guys all speedy recoveries, and we'll miss seeing them around here. And 3 of the top riders here at Gulfstream as well. It doesn't matter. I mean, you don't wish it to happen to anybody, obviously, wherever they are in the rider standings, but we'll miss those guys and hope that they come back real soon.
Yes, indeed. We do have some rider changes today as well to take note of. So Larry Colmus will go through those, and we'll try to mention them as we go throughout the card. But now we do want to take a look at our featured wagers and our carryovers today. In race 1, it does kick off the rolling super high 5, also does kick off the early 50-cent pick 5. As we get into the 7th race on the card, the 20-cent rainbow pick 6, that carryover continues to grow, $1.5 million. It does start in race 7. Race 8, the 50-cent late pick 5 here. And we'll take a look. We'll go through. We'll try to limp through this card here. Race 1 does start us off. Of course, this starts the 50-cent pick 5, and I believe you have a ticket.
I do. I'm going to use the 6 and 7, the first race, 2 horses that are currently the first 2 choices, and the 7, obviously, Beeline, and we'll get to a very logical player. It is a lot of guesswork, especially in race number 2, where you have one horse that ran that didn't do any running and first-time starters. I'm guessing with 4, 5, 7. I'm going to single the only horse with experience in race number 3 in there, 4 horses and 2 in the last, see how it works out. You know, it's hard to overcommit to this because of the first-time starter situation, as it turns out. We'll see how it plays out. I felt like, though, in the first race, the 7 was reasonable for Dale Romans, who does reasonable in drop-downs in general. He's a 26% trainer when he drops horses down. Feels like a horse that could be the main speed in here as well.
We've played this angle several times so far, the meet, and sometimes it really does work out for Dale Romans on the drop-in class, especially on the turf. And I agree with you. She has a nice outside post position. She has enough positional speed to really get into a good position going into the first turn with a short run. I like her. The 6, Lila Bird, is perhaps another option here, and I believe we have an interesting stat on the barn.
Yeah, it's a small sample. I just thought I'd put it up there. I like to look at how some trainers do with synthetics, and he has had a couple winners. And actually, I think that they were they may have been at Gulfstream. I'm not even sure, but he had some winners at prices. And you know, this horse obviously is going to have to get the distance here, a 7.5 around 2 turns. And even though it's 1 more furlong than 6.5 at Woodbine, it's the 2 turns versus the 1 turn that could be a bit of an issue. But I know the turf races, you know, were not that bad from a standpoint of who we ran against, and might fit well in this race.
Well, if the competition stacks up, or the company lines that she did keep against Maiden Special Weight Company in the past, why exactly do they drop her in for that $16,000 tag off an October layoff?
No, that's a very reasonable question. She's a 4-year-old, and you know, maybe they're trying to win a race and run where she belongs. How good is she really? It is always a question, and you do think with these drop downs, they understand there's a reasonable chance they're going to lose them, and they have to be comfortable with that. Probably where she belongs, though, at the end of the day.
The 2, Patient Digna, to the inside is a horse I'll just use underneath. She has had her fair share of tries to try to get into the winner's circle, but I do like the fact that she gets to a firmer course here today, and she's well posted, and she was okay when she faced similar company. 3 starts back, and I think if she performs back to that type of race, it could make her competitive.
Okay.
Moving on to the 2nd race, a maiden special weight, 6 furlongs onto the main track. And this is one of the many maiden special weight races we have that just kind of leave you scratching your head.
Right. I mean, there's just not a whole lot to go on here. It's interesting, the 3, Curlin's Vow, is a have to run happy. It's actually the 2nd pole from the dam, and a nice buy to get this horse for $60,000 before people knew that Run Happy was Run Happy. And you have to think Curlin's Vow could be dangerous, but not a knock on Tyler Gaffleon at all. But you see Corey Lannery on the other horse, the 6, Bourbon City, for Dale Romans, and Corey is more of Dale's sort of go-to guy, so it makes you feel like the 6 may be better. It doesn't always work out that way, though.
It doesn't always work out, and you also have to think of this distance in debut and a little bit of precocity, and I think City Zip might be a little bit more well meant at the 6 furlongs.
Yeah, I agree, but it is still run happy, but it's curling.
Yes.
But it is run happy, but it could turn out that way. At the end of the day, the two logical horses are a $325,000 first-time starter for Jimmy Jerkins and Centennial Farms, as well as a $500,000 Tappet, and Shadwell sure likes the Tappets for Shadwell Stable on the outside. But neither of these guys are great trainers with first-time starters.
No, talking about Jimmy Jerkins over the past 2 years with first-time starters on the dirt at this distance, 3 for 23, 13%, still a positive ROI. They hit the board about 40% of the time. But I agree with you. You look at even statistics for the Dale Romans barn with dirt sprinters at first asking, about 16% too. So it kind of leaves you in a tricky situation in terms of those multi-race sequences. But you went to the 5 Kamsa Fu, who I thought was interesting and actually has some decent workouts at Gulfstream Park West.
Yeah, and you know, and there were 6 falls to this dam. 3 of them were actually pretty solid. So there's pedigree from the dam side to have runners. It's a local guy, and I'm thinking, you know, and listen, this horse might end up going off at 18 to 1, and in all likelihood won't be a runner at all. A horse like this rates to take some money if it can run. But I'm thinking, as opposed to these guys who may be thinking sort of long-term down the road, not that the trainer isn't obviously, they're all thinking long-term, but maybe looking to win more locally, I just thought I'd take a shot. It's a total guess on my part.
It is a guess, but again, some of those workouts at Gulfstream Park West, you see horses, especially in debut here, they transition their form nicely because Gulfstream Park West is a little bit of a deeper track. So if they look like they're slower works, they're actually quite good.
Right.
So that's something to be cognizant of when you're looking at that particular horse too. I think he's definitely one of the many that could win race 2. Race 3 on the card, another maiden special weight, 6 furlongs on the main track. We do have at least one horse to work off of, and that is the one Quick Release.
We'll take a look at Quick Release, losing a tough one first time out at 8 to 1 at Tampa Bay. And at the end of the day, looking this race up, it seems to come up a solid race. Third place finisher came back and won, albeit at 3 to 5, but ran a very similar figure. And this came up a fast race, I think, at any figure you look at. And I don't see any reason you're supposed to not think that Quick Release not only has the advantage of experience, but who are the firsters in this race, Gab, that jump off the page at you? I mean, the two that look the ones you want feel like Ian Wilkes' 2 horses on the outside, but Ian's a trainer. His horses usually as firsters need a race.
Yes, and talking about that replay there quickly, it is a little bit discouraging that he was kind of, she was kind of plodding home there, and the inside horse kind of outclassed her in that race. But I don't know. I agree with you. I thought that that was an okay performance, but who is supposed to show up in debut? And also, she does draw that inside post. She obviously has speed. They could use that to her advantage. Who else is going to show speed in debut?
I agree. And, you know, there's some question about how the rail is because we did see horses run okay on the rail yesterday. I still am not sure it's the best place to be, but it's hard to tell. And, you know, when you get a situation where the riders become aware of it, so they stay off of it, you're not even sure if it's gotten better. And at the end of the day, it won't matter. It may well not matter because Javier's acutely aware of the racetrack, and he's going to try to get away from the rail with this horse if he can. And as you say, the speed and the experience may really give this horse an edge.
Yes, the 5 to the Moon Alice is a first-time starter for Gary Contessa and is clocking some short, nice workouts. Maybe this one could show a little bit of speed.
Well, how do you not root for a horse that's got a honeymooners reference in it? It's a little before your time, but it is. I agree. I thought this horse might be dangerous, as well as Last Kiss, the horse that you have second, I have third. So the dam was a Shug McGay runner that was actually pretty good, and this horse might be able to run a little bit.
The Lemon Drop kids, though, sometimes it takes them a couple starts to really fire. That was my main concern. That's why you singled on the filly to the inside, right?
I did, because I'm going to be completely guessing otherwise.
Yes.
And I'd rather put some spreads in other races and just take my chances here. I mean, I could use 4 horses, and you know what? When the one loses, I'm still not going to land on the horse that wins the race, so what's the point?
You might as well save money and lose, or vice versa. We'll take a look at the
spread in other races.
We'll take a look at the 4th race going out to the Mile Scratch, the outside horse, the main track only entrant. We'll go back and take a look at the 10 Cowgirl Tufts most recent replay on the 7th of January, and this was a very sharp performance.
Where did this race come from, and how confident are you that she's going to run back to it? I've got her second, you've got her on top, but she runs back to this race. she's probably going to win today, Gabby.
Well, her back or turf races, excuse me, they weren't too bad. I mean,
Not this
obviously,
good. This
no,
was
no, no, not this
significantly
good. This
better.
was significantly good. Yes, I agree. She obviously had some excuses in her maiden special weight race off the layoff. Maybe Jane Sabelli just figured this filly out, and she's going to come back to a good performance. I couldn't make a strong case for really anybody to her inside, and that's why I go back to her today.
I have no argument against her. I have to bet the 4, Melody Kroon again. This is a horse. I mean, at least she's a horse in this race that has figures that are as fast, if not faster, in the win by the favorite. And I think they're legitimate efforts, and she's had some trouble. I don't love that she just ran here 6 days ago. On the other hand, she got completely buried on the inside in that race and never had a chance to get herself into position to win the race. And I think, one of the keys, and if you watch the top riders, a John Velasquez, a Javier Castellano, the guys in these turf races, what they'll do, and I think about it that last Monday, a horse you weren't here, that's a deep closer. John rode the horse the first time, and he got the horse into a position where if it was good enough to win, it could win. And I think that's one of the things that I think the riders that are regular here, and not looking to be too hard on them, but they don't have the experience with the better horses and the better situations, could learn from these riders. Get your horse into a position where if it can win, it may win. It still may not win, but it can win. And sometimes you just sort of like come out of the gate and let the race develop in front of you. And I talk with this a lot with Richard Migliori about it, both on the air and off the air. It's that early position, getting yourself into early position. It just gives you less work to do at the end, and you can do it without extending your horse that much. And I'm hoping that Melody Kroon, it gets a little bit better position today. We'll see.
It's all about the break. It's all about getting your horse into a position. That really is what it boils down to in some of these races.
The break in horse racing, especially in turf races, has so much. It's so important. And I mean, if you just watch them and watch what happens, it's amazing how much you could see the start and say, that horse isn't good. That horse can't win. That horse can't win. That horse can win. And you can figure it out from there.
We'll take a look at the 3, Little Big Girl. This is a horse I really didn't know what to do with. Can she duplicate her performance last time out? Arguably, she was very much the best. Now, she was 36-1 that day and really blew us all away. But she was extremely wide throughout, extremely wide in the final turn.
She wasn't.
She was wide in the final turn.
No, she was not. She was on the rail on the final turn, and she moved to the 2 path.
Oh, sorry.
She was 6 wide on the first turn.
In the first turn,
No, the first turn was a catastrophe. She was much the best. I agree with you. But I thought this horse actually got a great ride by Fergal Lynch because he was very wide in the first turn. There's not much he could do. He got totally stacked up, but he actually got in and saved ground. But I agree with you. She was best. It was a bad field, though.
And can she duplicate it against winners
better
here?
Horses.
I don't really know if this is better horses. I mean, obviously, if the 10 Cowgirl Tough shows up, she's
or my
good.
4.
But there are a whole bunch of horses that really haven't proven themselves yet on the turf, or they have, and their figures aren't as good as what she did run last time out. Look, I picked her 4th in here. I respect her. And the 6, Shiny Surprise. Can this filly transition her form from Presque Isle to PETA to the turf? The barn does pretty well at Presque Isle. Their horses run very well, and not so much here, but they don't have a lot of starters here. So I thought that she was interesting running against decent company.
She's a wild card. She's got to stretch out, too.
Race 5 on the card, a maiden special weight, a mile out on the turf course, and have a couple of rider changes in here we'll get to. But I thought this was kind of a tough race in here. I believe we have a replay of Akron Gold, who should be your favorite post time.
And she is, and she's the horse to beat. But you need to watch her. She's the 7 on the inside. By the way, this is what you're missing with Joel Rosario being hurt. This was some ride that Joel gave this horse. The 9 horse, on the other hand, is the one 3 wide with her. And this is an interesting Trackus race to look at. And you see the 9 is the one that's moving up right now, 4 wide, making the run. And Joel is waiting behind horses, and he really does a tremendous job of weaving in between. Joel's horse, I think, ran 5 feet farther than the shortest distance anyone covered in this race. Sharp Kitty ran 63 feet farther than anybody else in this, than the shortest horse, or 58 feet farther than Akron Gold. That's a lot more than the 4 1/4 lengths that she finished behind her.
Yes.
That doesn't, listen, one doesn't always equate to the other, and I think the 7 ran very well coming through traffic. But it's enough for me with the Sharp Kitty getting the 2 post and Akron Gold getting the 8 post today to take a little bit of a shot with Sharp Kitty.
And Sharp Kitty did get into an intimidating position throughout the stretch as well. She was kind of met with a horse to her outside, to her inside. I wouldn't say she shuffled, but she was in more of an intimidating position than Akron Gold. I can't fault you with that. She did have a much wider run. Matt Rispoli will ride the 2 Sharp Kitty here today. Javier Castellano on the 8 Akron Gold, so do take note of that.
I'm not suggesting the 2 is more likely to win than the 8, but I think the odds will compensate for the chances.
What about the 9 Fabulous Devotion? This horse last time out over a good going. She was squeezed at the top of the stretch and really almost clipped heels at the 8th pole. We saw Conquest Dynasty come out of that race. She was a beaten favorite, but I thought the race might have been a little bit better with excuses.
Here's my problem. She had that trouble in the stretch, but Castor and Conquest Dynasty had gigantic trouble early in the race. So they should have finished 5 lengths ahead of her in that race. I don't think her trouble was as significant as the others. I think it's an interesting point you break up, but I just thought the other horses had so much more trouble. I threw in No Fault for Rusty Arnold, who has a little bit of turf pedigree, as my 3rd horse.
I did too. She's by Blame out of a mare who did produce, I believe, 2 winners and really did no running in debut, but that was a tough maiden special weight and perhaps getting to a more preferred surface here today. We'll take a look at the 6th race, another maiden race, different kind of maiden race, maiden 12,500, 5.5 furlongs on the main track. And I thought this was kind of a tricky race, especially in those multi-race sequences.
I think in a race like this, a horse that has Dart in its name feels like the appropriate horse to pick in here. And my Dart landed on Black Dart. And I'm joking because Black Dart, I think, is the horse to be in this race. I think I picked the chalk in here, and for good reason. Just thought ran well enough last time out. I think do I have a trainer stat for Gustavo Delgado? It's he's got a decent numbers, 4 for 17 on his trainer switches. Trainer switch with maiden claimers in the dirt. I don't want anybody else in here, but I think you have 2 of my other 3 in your mix.
The 6 Zachary's Pitch did get into a little bit of trouble. I just hope they send this horse out of the gate, go to the lead, and never look back. Just kind of, you look at his race in debut. Again, he just wasn't good enough for that race. He had trouble last time out. He actually chased. His best option is to go to the lead.
I completely agree with you. I'm a little worried that the 8 El Maxi might get in his way, but I completely agree he's supposed to go.
The 7 Key West Dude, we both also used in here, debuted, originally carded for the turf, run on the main track in the slop. I can remember this horse in the paddock too, and he was a very good looking horse actually. I almost wanted to see him get more distance, but perhaps getting to a fast track, it could help him.
We'll see. I mean, he was entered to run the turf, so we'll see how it works out. I want to be a Key West dude.
Me
That's
too.
like a goal in life.
Well, not
right?
a dude. I don't want to be a Key West dude. I want to be
it's a little more information than we need, but thanks. Time for a break.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6 once again. We have a big carryover, $1.5 million carryover. I have a ticket. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Gulfstream. Today we'll take a look at the Pick 6 $1.5 million carryover today, and came up with a ticket and couldn't find a single today, but actually using 2 horses in the final 3 legs of the sequence, spreading in the first leg 2, 4, 8, 9 with 3, 8, 9 with 8, 10, 11, 13, and once again 3, 6, 6, 7, 1, 6. And the feature race of the day, I do really like your 2 favorites.
Yeah, they look like the 2 you want in there. The last race is one where you call Nostradamus and see if he's got any numbers for you, because that last race today is one of those, you get to the last race of the week. And I feel like this has happened a number of times, and you're like, really? I'm supposed to pick a horse in this race? It's not an easy one. I think you and I may have to fall into horses at relatively short prices. We'll see how it works out. I like Todd Pletcher's first time turfer in this race a lot. Heavenly View. This is just a big pedigree to handle it. The dams produced 6 turf horses to try at 4 of 1, including a very nice horse, including Heavenly Ransom, who I think ran for trainer Bill Mott. I just want the pedigree. Todd wanted to get this horse in the turf, and frankly, I didn't think anybody in here had run so well that this horse has to be that good to win.
And she did no running in debut, so I like the fact that she really improved on the dirt in her second start. So getting to a preferred surface today, you could only imagine that it's going to go upwards from there.
I wish she had done no running last time, and she'd be a bigger price today.
Yeah, you make a good point. You see on the bottom side, this horse is Half Do Capitano, who made about $280,000 on the turf, another grade 3 winner as well. Some really good turf pedigree on the bottom side. I'm using her. I'm using her second. The 8 Spintress in here I thought was interesting. She's by hard spun. You see on the bottom side, the mare was winless in 2 starts on the dirt, and the barn doesn't do very well with first-time maiden special weight starters on the turf. But kind of grasping at straws, I think she's going to move forward on the turf.
I've got her third in here. The dam's a half to Speightstown, actually, who is remarkable, or is one of the more remarkable sires out there. He seems like he can sire a horse that can do anything. And
any distance, any surface,
He didn't even come into his own until he was like 7. He's one of the coolest horses out there. Reimbursed the 4 to me for the Cassie barn. I thought the second race was actually okay. I don't know what happened last time. We haven't seen her now in 4 months, so maybe something happened. I thought the race 2 back was okay, though.
Well, we saw the winner, Ava's Kitten, come back. I believe she was a Chad Brown filly. She actually took a stake up north in her next start. So it came up okay, and she very well, if none of these first-time starters or first-time turf starters pop, she very well could win on class alone.
Thank God Ava's Kitten won a stake. She's named for Chad's daughter, Ava.
Okay.
And I think after she lost her first couple starts, Ava was making rider changes. She was getting very involved in the handling of Ava's Kitten. So thank God it worked out for her eventually, or it could have gotten ugly.
Okay, well, using 4 horses there in the first leg of the sequence. We'll move on to the 8th race, and I'm interested to see your take on the late pick 5. Let's see it.
We will take a look at it, actually. Thanks for bringing that up, Gabby.
You're
I really
welcome.
appreciate that. I'm going to use what I'm hoping are the logical horses along with my horse, who's a little better price in here in the first 2 legs. I had a scratch in the next race, so using the 10 and 11, and I think the 10 will probably, one of them will be favored to the 11. 3, 6, 6, 7, as you said in the feature, and I'm guessing with 3 in the last race, including 1 that you used, and we'll see how it goes. I feel like as we talk about the next race, we'll take a look at Double Berg.
And
The 3 horse and JL's Princess, who finished second. And Double Berg got it done last time, and this was a horse that we all wanted 3 back. Didn't get a particularly good trip. Won in the slop. Fortunately, we bet a few dollars on her and made a couple bucks to compensate. And then last time was the time for her, but last time was the time for her. I still think she's much the horse to beat, because what about her last race doesn't suggest that she's just good enough to win?
I feel you on that statement as well. She just has that positional speed. She has a good post position today. How do you think that anybody else is going to turn the table? She got a perfect ride last time out, but again, it's her running style that puts herself into a good position to win. I actually did go against her in terms of a top selection, but my top selection scratched with the 4 Maydell. So I do default into her, but I do think that she's very competitive in this race.
Yeah, I put her second, but I'm not in any way against her. I think if you're going to try to beat her, you have to go in a slightly different direction than the one she ran against. And you and I are looking at the same 3 horses here. With Scorpion Alley, you got a trainer change. I like Michelle. I think Michelle Dunn was a terrific trainer. Whether or not she's down here, and so often she does better work in New York than she does here. So I like that Michael Dubb made this switch, because I have a world of respect for Michael as an owner. He's as sharp an owner as we have in the game, and the fact that he claimed this horse, he's been over her head in those couple of starts. I think the barn change and a slight drop, to me, this is the one you want if you're trying to beat the 3. You seem to agree. You put her second.
You should be able to get a decent price on her, too. And Marcus Vitale, Nick Juarez, they've actually teamed up for several winners so far the past couple of weeks here. So good connections. I agree with you. Dropping back down to a more reasonable level, she should be tough. Another horse to perhaps throw in the 8, Rhythm Queen. Javier Castellano does get the mount here today. And last time out, you go back and watch the replay. Was the inside horse, they were kind of dueling throughout the stretch, was the inside horse more game, or obviously was she hanging a little bit in the last couple
I don't know,
of
maybe she was hanging a little bit. I thought she got a good ride, and Ladies Little Luck just ran there, I think, a little bit. I just thought it was good enough that makes her a factor here. And split hairs on her.
Okay, we'll move on to the 9th race, an open 6,250 claiming event, a mile and a 16th on the main track. And we had kind of a key scratch to the outside, the 14 Not Welcome, a very tough outside post. We do not have a
that horse
replay.
is entered on Thursday.
Yeah.
That's probably why they scratched. And a horse that affected the pace, and I think that helps a horse like Steve, actually, and maybe move Steve up a little bit, and we like Steve.
Oh, Steve.
I still think that Saturday Special is the horse to beat. At the end of the day, this is a drop down for George Navarro. These kind of horses, especially this week, have been running even better than they look on paper. And on paper, this is the horse to beat. I'm not bucking the trend.
Neither am I. chased behind Rich Daddy last time out, who came back to win the Rough and Ready last Monday. That was a very tough race. Had excuses on claiming Crown Day. It gets back. I know he might be a horse that's headed in the wrong direction, but George Navarro is cognizant of horses that might be doing that and putting them well placed. That's why they win at such a high percentage.
And he dares people to claim them, and frequently they don't because they're afraid to claim from, and I don't blame them. And he gets away with it, and these horses seem to win. I mean, Racetrack Romance has some good form in here, and you've got Javier, but those are off the turf races. I'm going to use the horse, but I just feel like the 11's a more true dirt horse.
I agree with you. Racetrack Romance has run some high buyer speed figures on the main track before, but has never won on a fast main track. Some of the better races have come on an off track or originally carded turf races. So the one thing that I think will help the 10 Racetrack Romance, so he does have a little bit of speed, a little bit of positional speed. He very well could just stalk or even go to the lead today.
I don't know to go to lead over Steve. I think the 11 Saturday Special has easily as much speed, if not more speed. So I just don't think it has any advantage over the 11.
The 13 Boom Boom Frankie, I didn't know what to do with this horse because he had so much excuses last time out, coming out of the gate. Now stretching back out to 2 turns. I didn't use him in the top 3, but I used him in the pick 6.
Got post 12 for a rider with no experience.
That was the reason why I
that
couldn't
horse
pick
is
him
just
in
a
the top
complete
3.
pitch for me. No disrespect, but you know these mile and a 16th races around 2 turns in the dirt here. You need, if you have an outside post, to have a rider that knows what he needs to do into that first turn. And you're talking about a guy who had 10 rides in 2015. It's not his fault, but facts are facts.
The 7 El Grun Joyful you use, but that horse is just left with so much to do at the top.
You've got 8 minutes. We could go through everyone in this race if you really
we'll
you want to spend a lot more time in this race, and I want to do what you want to do.
The 10th race, an open $16,000 claimant. There's a lot of horses in that race.
We
so
could go back.
I
think everybody here would be happy to hear a dissertation with the final 8 minutes.
Let's breeze through race 10, and we'll get to the feature race eventually.
Why
but
breeze?
The open $16,000 event, a mile out on the turf course, and an interesting race as well. The 6 fan base does have the speed, but will he make the lead with the 2, the commish, stretching out from sprint distance?
That's interesting. I think that he's faster, and I think he'll get the lead. I'm hoping that Joe Bravo gets in a position with exclusive strike and he beats him. I don't think he should be that far behind him. I put him 1-2. I wasn't that clever. You've got Pep the Champ in the middle of them.
I did. Exclusive strike, though. Did it worry you at all, the final couple of strides in his last race? Because I thought he had full opportunity to win that race. It was, for all the marbles, a little bit more game to his inside, or did he just have no follow-through?
Or was he? Yes, I'll put it another way. He was less game than for all the marbles. I agree. He was hanging. I don't like that. And, you know, you're talking about a horse exclusive strike that the negatives are, I mean, this horse was, this is like a stakes quality horse not that long ago, and now he's running for 16. In Jason's service, I trust. But I agree. He's got some real questions.
Definitely one. I backed myself up with a couple different horses there in the pick 6. I couldn't quite trust exclusive strike there, at least in terms of a single by any means. We'll move on to the 11th race, the feature race of the day. 6 furlongs on the main track. Scratch the 1, April Gaze, Make the Rider, Johnny Velasquez on the 6, Tap to It, and Corey Lannery on the 3, Disco Rose. And I think you and I both agree that these 2 horses, your 2 favorites, are the 2 horses to beat. We'll go back and take a look at the spinaway that on the 6, Tap to It, when she was second in defeat to Rachel's Valentina.
And there is no embarrassment in losing to Rachel's Valentina, who couldn't get close to Songbird in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, but I don't know who can get close to Songbird, at least at this point, especially among the fillies, the horse of her sex. I like Tap to It, her first race. I mean, her first race is so much better than it looks on paper. She had a world of trouble and still won that race. She's a good horse. She wasn't really suited to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Maybe it didn't work out for her. I still think she's a good horse, but she may be a little pace compromised in this race, Gabby.
Yes, and that was my main concern. One thing that goes against her is that she doesn't have a lot of early speed, especially at this particular distance, and perhaps that's her Achilles heel, trying to find a good position and close from off the pace today, whereas the 7 off the tracks has more natural speed, which she could use to her advantage today off the layoff.
Absolutely, and before we get right into the tracks, and we'll show her Schuylerville, Tap to It, I'm sure they would like to win every race they run with her. This is a horse they're thinking about the really big races.
Yes.
Whether she's a Kentucky Oaks filly or she ends up being an Acorn horse, a one-turn, a test-type horse. But off the tracks, here she is in her last start in the Schuylerville. This is a pure sprinter. I'm sure she's thinking about those races too, but she's going to be in front in this race, and that's going to give her a tactical advantage because this was legitimately a very good win.
It was very good. You can see she was given a little bit of encouragement under Louis Saez, and then once it all clicked, she really just kicked away from the rest of the field. We saw Bon Reed to come back and be third in the Tempted recently as well. These are horses who were precocious. Obviously, she's very precocious, and she's very quick, so you'd have to really respect her off the layoff.
Yeah, it's hard to see both of these horses losing. They may not run 1-2, but I didn't want to go against either one. Now, they both are off layoffs, but they seem to be better than these horses.
What about the 5 Ballet Diva? I know she's had a couple of chances here, but she was caught in a very tricky position last time out against the likes of Catherine Sophia and the forward gal. Obviously, Catherine Sophia didn't break well and didn't make the lead in that race, but she's run some very good races, and she's cutting back a little bit, and she has recency to her name, and she's quick.
I probably should have put her third. She's the third likeliest winner here. I can't argue with anything you're saying.
Hey, race 12, we'll cap it off.
You know, we've got some time. We might be able to go back to the ninth.
I'm sick of that. We'll go to the...
You've moved on.
I've moved on. The 12th and final race here, maiden $35,000 event. 5 furlongs on the turf. The one, Tis an Illusion, probably the horse to beat.
You know, this is a thankless position for Julian Leparoux, who picks up the ride. It was going to be for Rafael Hernandez, in that I don't know, you know, she gets blinkers on, but she's coming out of a slow-paced 7.5 furlong race into a 5 furlong sprint with plenty of speed. I picked her because, you know, she gets Lasix. I respect Brian Lynch. I just think she might be better than these. I don't know how good any of these horses are, but she's going to really need them to come apart because she can't be close to the pace. It's just very hard for her to keep up here early.
Yes, and but she does have that inside post. It could play to her advantage, and I think this race could go one of two ways. We either see a couple other horses vying for the lead, or perhaps one breaks out and goes straight to the lead. I'm hoping the 6, Michael's Little Alley, can just go. Last time out got off to a little bit of an awkward start, and I think perhaps compromised her, even though she was fast enough to go to the lead. Again,
that race collapsed late.
It did collapse late.
It wasn't a great race, but it collapsed late.
And I think she could fit the flow of the race a little bit better. My only concern is 2 are outside with the 8 First Illusion.
I think that First Illusion is dangerous. I think that Artemis is dangerous. I even think the 10 Fend for Yourself is dangerous to show speed here. And I think the prospect for some hitting exists, but I do think your 6 horse is a dangerous horse in this race. This is a very, very hard race, and it's not a race where, I mean, if you single and you're right, I tip my hat to you, but this is a very hard race. I mean, I used Donna Paula just because I think, didn't Dane Kabisky win wasn't Glamour Queen his horse that was coming off a race, or maybe it was somebody else, actually. No, I'm thinking of another horse here brought from Indiana, the horse that beat that heavy favorite of Eddie Keneally in a maiden race and came back and ran second to Todd in a 1 16th allowance race. Actually, it came from Indiana. There isn't really any turf pedigree, but he did try to run it on turf both times. I even threw in the first-time starter, Toe Curls, who there's some turf pedigree in the second dam, and it's an arch. I'm telling you, I'm at sea in this race.
It's tough. I just took the approach where I liked 2 horses. I thought Tis an Illusion on the drop-in class is going to be competitive, and if the 6 makes the lead and is competitive today, I just used 2 horses in the final leg of the sequence. I did.
Chucky Please in there.
Well, I think this horse could run into the mix at probably a decent price. You go back to the last 5 furlong turf sprint, was okay at Gulfstream Park West. Just kind of followed the pieces home. But if that pace does fall apart, I think it could set up for her. And you could argue that it was against slightly tougher.
I'm not knocking any pick in this race. I mean, this is a race where I'm not going to look up and I'm going to say, I couldn't have bet that horse, but I'm not shocked. This is a good race. This is probably a really good dime superfecta race, because this is a race you could get some clever horses in there, and I think your 6 is a very clever pick and the horse that will probably outrun its odds. Doesn't mean it's going to win, but probably outrun its odds, and you bet horses like that over time, you'll make money.
Now, who did you use in the final leg of the pick 5 there?
I used my 3 top choices. I'm not like you. I didn't use my first and third. I used all of my top 3.
I went with the price, and I went with the favorite.
You know, it's funny. I agree with what you did. I agree, and it's hard because I have that same problem sometimes when I'm putting tickets together. It's like I'd rather use a fourth horse that I pick than a second or third horse because I think it's a better horse to responsibly use than to pick 5
Yes.
because I'm trying to get through that leg. But I think, can I really do that? And somebody says, I don't understand. You used the 1, 4, 5 in the second leg, and your picks in the race were 1, 2,
It's
4
all
or
about
something.
strategizing, though, because I think there's value with the 6 because it's a price, and you have to respect. Obviously you can't really afford, or I couldn't afford to throw one more horse in the sequence. I think the 3 could run well at a price, but I'm more confident in either the 1 or the 6 winning in the finale.
I absolutely agree. It's the 3 may be your interesting horse to try to get into the Super.
Yeah.
And a horse you don't mind prominently putting in your picks, but you don't feel it's a great horse to put in. It makes perfect sense. I hope that people understand that.
Let's hope so. Let's
Look
hope.
who's here.
Larry is waiting in the wings. Finally, right? We
Finally,
finished
we've
on
been
time.
waiting for him.
Oh, you helped me move on from the 6,250.
Somebody needs to move you off of that race.
Well, we're actually 1 minute past time. So with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and Larry Comas will be up with those scratches and all those rider changes as well. Thank you once again for joining us on Gulfstream today. We'll be back for races 1 through 12.